you started Beauty Kitchen with your husband, actually, in 2014. And I think you were very intrinsically motivated why you set up the company. So could you share a little bit what the motivation was and what your business philosophy is?
Yes, I'm a failed chemist and my professional background is HR. Sometimes that's called human resources, sometimes it's called human remains. Just depends where you are in an organisation. And I've always had a real interest in beauty and sustainability, although really back then nobody really called it sustainability. I'm not sure what it was called then. So when it comes to the beauty industry, I love the industry for lots of different reasons. You can create formulations, you can innovate, startups can happen. It doesn't necessarily need to be owned just by the corporate world. And it's something that can happen across the globe. It doesn't matter if you're from a small business in Glasgow in Scotland or in New York City. It can be accessible to anyone. But the problem with it is that it just really wasn't sustainable at all. When we started Beauty Kitchen, it was a kind of journey and conduit between making great, beautiful beauty products that I could use myself, selfishly, and then working on this reusable packaging aspect to it. And then making that available to an industry. So, you know, we are a self-funded business, so we don't have any external investment at the moment. You know, that may happen at some point in the journey. But what that does is it gives you real, true flexibility, and that kind of makes you creative. And really, when you think about cradle-to-cradle principles or circularity, it is about waste reduction. And in the beauty industry, there is a lot of waste. So that was the kind of journey about understanding the formulations, which really is the easy part. The packaging side, not so easy. And the reason for that is that if you want reusable packaging, it's actually quite easy to make. But what happens when you return it? And that's really where the big problem lies, is that if you want to do anything that's reusable, particularly in FMCG, you have to create a full infrastructure of all the way around circularity, and that's taken a bit longer.
You have definitely disrupted the beauty industry in terms of the formulation space, so you mentioned that, but then there's the packaging, right? And I've read somewhere that in the UK, over 95% of beauty packaging is thrown away after just one use.
Yeah.
So that's quite some statistics. And you have set up a pioneering return, refill, repeat program.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, so it all kind of started with, when we started the business, we wanted to look at B Corp certification and cradle-to-cradle certification. But as a small independent business, we had to really work with those principles before we were ready to go down the certifying route. So the fact that we worked with those principles in the very early days meant that when it came to the certification side of things, I'm not saying it was easier, but I think it was definitely simpler. And there's a cultural aspect to everything that happens in your business. So we don't really think our business is particularly different. It's not until we then face into other people's businesses that we go, all right, okay, maybe it is a little bit different. Through the cradle-to-cradle certification, what came out of that was the reusable packaging system that shouldn't just be for one very small independent beauty business that turns over about €2 million a year. The impact that we can have is very, very tiny. But when it comes to reusable packaging systems, if we can create something that anyone could access, particularly the personal care industry, the impact is huge. So the data is that I think there's 8 organisations within personal care that really own about 72% of the overall sales and market globally. Yeah? So if you can get to either just one of those companies, all 8 would be great. The impact is huge in comparison to Beauty Kitchen. So the reusable packaging system really got its framework by going through the cradle-to-cradle certification.
And I know so many of the companies here that are really trying to establish, this circular infrastructure, trying to set up the systems behind that, also for take-back schemes. So which challenges did you face in setting it up, and how did you overcome them?
So I think Nobody's too small to make a difference, yeah? Greta Thunberg said that, and every small startup should always think that. But when you're facing into a larger corporate organisation, you have to bridge the gap between their linear business model of only looking through the lens of profit, yet when your business doesn't just look through that one particular lens, because you won't talk to them in the same language. Yeah, so, you know, a lot of the other values that sit within our business, we kind of really didn't talk about. We talked about cost efficiency, profitability, effectiveness, and then the softer stuff in terms of this is the right thing, why wouldn't you want to do it? So when you're setting up the infrastructure, you obviously need to understand every single moving part of it, and it is a bit of a house of cards. And when you're a small, you know, with small resource, it feels like you're spinning many different plates to try and get people to connect. However, there has been obviously market conditions that really helped with that. Yeah, so the plastic tax that's, you know, coming down the road, carbon tax is going to be there, ERP. There's market conditions that are shifting, particularly within FMCG, to why would you take something like this, use the water, yeah, either dump it, which happens sometimes, or crush it down and then build it back up again. You know, the entropy, the scientific entropy just doesn't make commercial sense. And hitting those commercial aspects to any business and letting them know that they could be more profitable, they could be more efficient, just so happens they're also doing the right thing, is a really powerful message. So the infrastructure was everything from packaging manufacturers, but even before that it was the materials. So we're trying to disrupt a monoculture of plastics. So the materials that we use at the moment are glass, aluminium and stainless steel. But we've gone to the source. And you know, we're working with two of the largest aluminium packaging companies in the world, which are Trivium and Ball, because they're the ones that have only ever been asked, okay, this is glass, but with aluminium, can you make it lighter? Can you make it cheaper? Can you make it less durable? Because it's only going to go through a recycling system. We've come to them with something that's an opportunity, and it's about targeting each parts of those infrastructure with an opportunity. We're going to them and saying, can you make it heavier? Can you make it more durable? Yeah, because these materials can last in terms of their reuse. So it's everything from, you know, packaging manufacturers and the materials that come from there, through to the sales channels in terms of the brands and the retailers, through to the consumers, through to then what happens with the return system and how do you have cleaning protocols and all of that. So it is very, very complicated, but we know circularity is not simple. However, there is so much opportunity, not just for small startups like mine, but much larger organisations to be first to market.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the beauty kitchen consumer, the customer of beauty kitchen. Let's look at this. How is the system received? How are they engaging in the system? What do you observe after a few years of trying it out?
So we use blue glass, and anybody that knows about blue glass, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful, really expensive. Yeah, not only in terms of cash, but it's also really expensive in terms of human health. You know, to get the cobalt out the ground, all of the stuff that sits around that. But what most people don't know is that blue glass is not recycled. Yeah, but every consumer will put it in the recycling going, of course it gets recycled. It disappears from my house. It must go somewhere. And that was really one of the fascinating points when it comes to something like blue glass. It's then taking your time about not being too ahead of your end customer. Because my customers buy our products for the efficacy. Yeah, so, you know, they will want to think about the skin that they live in, and they want to have the best, I suppose, most sustainable skin that they can possibly have. And that's the first aspect of it. But we then drip feed. We didn't at first. We learned by mistakes, by telling everybody how sustainable we are and how great we are, and it just turned everyone off. We stopped saying that. Focused in on why people buy our products because of efficacy, and then drip feed our repeat customers more messages in terms of the reusability and also the regenerative properties within the formulations.
And in the beauty sector, we have heard it in the earlier panels, retailers play, of course, a front line when it comes to connecting the customers also with more sustainable products.
Yep.
So how are you partnering with retailers for the reusable packaging system?
So again, it's really hard. Our job is to make competitors into collaborators, yeah, because every brand potentially wants to have their own reusable system. But if that happens, then it's not going to work. And the challenge that we have with the circular economy and circularity is scale. So, you know, it's about getting brands on board, retailers on board, and consumers so that they can participate in the circular economy. And we've done that, one, by being Glaswegian and quite cheeky. And then two, it's around this aspect of profitability. It's about cost. It's about reducing their costs. It's always that focus. Whether that efficiency is passed on to consumers is a different matter, and that's not my job. But we pride ourselves in making competitors into collaborators through sharing packaging. So we would have, you know, an Elemis premium spa product in the same container, yeah, as a Radox, which is a Unilever brand in the UK. And the price points are from €1 to €40, and yet it's the same bottle. That was probably one of the biggest challenges, because brands think that their packaging is their brand identity. And of course it is. But it doesn't need to be a plastic bottle or a single-use bottle. It can be a reusable piece of packaging. I have worked very closely with other reuse providers. So Jean Boutet, that's based in France, Loop, that's based in the US, but obviously they have a stronghold in the UK. You know, so because we have a $1 trillion single-use packaging industry, $1 trillion a year, yeah, and then there's this little bodies of reuse sitting here. So we know that we need to work together and collaborate as much as we can to make the difference and make that change. But in the UK, we are currently at, I think it's 28 SKUs, as in 28 different products, and that's in around 35 stores. But we have just, I'm not allowed to say it yet, but we have just confirmed that a large retailer will be distributing over 600 stores in the UK.
Do you see your solution is that, you know, where you hope to transform completely the packaging system of the beauty industry, or what else is coming? What else do you see on the horizon for packaging and beauty?
I mean, I think it would be naive of us to think that reuse is just a trend. I think, you know, we've got some big, serious problems to solve, but at the end of the day, we all consume stuff, and generally you have to consume stuff not always where you've got access to package-free products. It would just be my dream to see much more reusable packaging, and actually, people look at somebody said about looking in 2 years' time. 2 years' time, if we come back, it would be, you know, that people think, why did we take so long to do this? That would be the dream.
Well, thank you, Jo, for your passion. I think that could really, really be felt in the conversation. And